Welcome to another episode of Healing Her Halo. I'm your host, Patience Murray, and today I'm joined by Dr. Katariina Rosenblatt. She's an author, consultant, international trainer, and speaker with over a decade of experience empowering survivors of sex and labor trafficking as well as domestic violence. As the executive director of There Is Hope for Me, Inc., she founded a survivor led nonprofit dedicated to providing peer mentoring and support to survivors. Dr. Kat has created survivor empowerment workshops and led support groups for both adults and minor survivors. She developed a human trafficking identification tool and uses role playing and dynamic speaking techniques to educate children and communities about trafficking with a focus on Florida and Texas. Her personal testimony is a powerful story of survival, but we're going to get into all of that. Dr. Katariina, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you, Patience, for having me.
And having you here is truly special because this audience and everything that Healing Her Halo represents is about survivors for survivors.
Mm.
And for myself, I experienced a mass shooting, and I was shot in both of my legs. I was held hostage for 3 hours at the Pulse nightclub shooting. And those effects of trauma, they sometimes last a really long time and sometimes forever. And we got to learn how to manage and cope with that. And I just want to talk to you more today about your story and also how, your story has impacted the mission of how you help others. So, anywhere where you'd like to start, we just want to pass over to you to learn a little bit more about you. And if you guys can't see, you might be watching this on YouTube or you might be listening to it on one of our podcast streaming platforms, but she has such a beautiful smile.
Aw, thank you.
You do. You do. How do
Thank you.
you how do you maintain that light that you have?
I really believe that God created me for a purpose, and a lot of people go through tragedies, which, by the way, I appreciate you sharing what you went through as well. And I think sometimes people get stuck when they do go through a tragedy. But for me, I went through trafficking from 13 to 17, married someone who was in the cartel. His family was part of the cartel and lived a domestic violence life for 20 years, where I felt like I was a slave in this forced child marriage. And getting out of that would be enough. But they continue to try and stop me from doing anti-trafficking work to this day. So much so that I developed an aneurysm in my heart, had open heart surgery 2.5 years ago. But you know what? Um, when I woke up from that surgery, I said, I'm still here. God has a plan for me. And I was actually living in Orlando also during that time. My daughter was out about to go to Pulse
Oh my God.
at another nightclub. And so God woke me up and I started praying for her to come home. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, so it must have been right around that time. And she had just gotten ushered out of another club, and her friend were making their way. But she said, I don't know what happened. They shut down this club and everyone had to leave. So knowing that my daughter was spared also, uh, that night, and she made it home safely, and you made it home safely. I realize I have so much to be thankful for. We survive these tragedies and we overcome, health problems or things that we didn't anticipate, but God is faithful.
Yeah.
And he got
Yeah.
us through it. He got me through it. Girl, when I woke up with those tubes down my throat, I was just thankful to be alive. I said, I have another chance. Another chance. Are you kidding me? I'm going to take that chance and run with it. And nothing is going to stop me. So I know that God is with me
Mm.
and he is greater, he who is in me, than whatever is going on in the world. So I don't have to be afraid and I don't have to feel sad. I can rejoice that today is the day that God has made and I'm alive and ready to live it. So that's
Amen.
where that joy comes from.
Amen. Woo! I love your powerful testimony. Oh my gosh. You
Thank
the
you.
just the energy that you carry, the spirit. of the Lord that's within you, it shines so bright. And I'm so thankful that your daughter is safe and that she did come home that night.
Mm. Me too. Me too. And you know, my heart is with you for what you went through, because the next day, um, we drove by. You know, it was literally a mile, less than a mile from where I was living in Orlando, and we drove by there when they were taking, you know, the people out, and it gives you a whole different perspective on life. So, you know, you as well are a survivor, Patience. And I'm sure so many of your listeners are as well. Everybody's story matters. Everybody has gone through something. And now with COVID and everything that we all just went through as a global community, you know, everybody has something to be thankful for. The fact that they're
Absolutely.
still here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you so much for your encouragement and kind words as well. I do receive it. And I'm just, it makes me even more grateful for the opportunity to have this moment with you because it does feel
Mm.
divine.
Yeah.
And I understand that you're an author as well. So, and you wrote a few books, right? Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes, yes, and again, thank you for having this show. Thank you for having me and having the courage to empower other leaders. So, I have written two books, and my third one is about to come out. My first one was called Trafficking in America, and that was actually my dissertation for my PhD. And I focused on domestic minor sex trafficking of females,
Wow.
and used research from work with the Thorn Foundation, Ashton Kutcher's Foundation, as well as my nonprofit, There's Hope for Me. And so that book came out in 2014. And then my story, Stolen, the true story of a sex trafficking survivor, which was published by Revell Books. And now,
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. And there's a documentary out called The Taking Innocence Project, also, that has my story. And the third book is Breaking Down Barriers, Building Collaboration within the anti-trafficking movement. And so that one is a beautiful work with about 10 or 15 authors from around the globe who are anti-trafficking experts and survivors. And we hope to shed light on not only the issue of human trafficking, but how we can, as leaders in this work, collaborate and work together and be effective by building collaboration and building bridges. So
That's
that's my
brilliant.
next book. I'm excited about it.
That is so brilliant. And that's so important now. And we have technology that we can leverage as well to make these connections and collaborations happen. And it's really going to do great social impact work. And we have more than enough tools. We have more than enough people that we can really join together and do this work with. So I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud of just everybody who is a part of the book. So I'm so excited to look forward to that. And everybody, make sure you guys look forward to that as well. And so what basically now is the key focus for you? Like what are you doing now?
Well, I'm actually finishing my second master's degree in mental health counseling.
What? That's amazing.
Yeah, so I had a focus that I was going to go into law and become a prosecutor. That
Mm.
was something I was really interested in my whole life. And coming from a Jewish home, I was told early on to be a lawyer or to be a doctor. And so, you know, those things are wonderfully ingrained in your mind to succeed. And so I went to get my PhD in conflict resolution mediation, which goes hand in hand with law school. And then I went to law school, and I thought about becoming a lawyer, but I realized as I won the moot court competition and studied false light, defamation of character, that was my actual case for the moot court. I realized, you know, I'm not this aggressive. I'm not an aggressive person. I'm actually very peaceful.
Wow.
So I'm not sure that this is going to be who I want to be, you know, long term. However, I really, really love the law. And so I've used that as a way to help formulate legislation. And I've gone to Congress twice this year to speak. on Capitol Hill with lawmakers and other experts in the field. And
That's
as a
amazing.
result, we have this wonderful law now called the Child Marriage Prevention Act of 2024, which I'm very thankful Senator Durbin out of Illinois has created. But having had that in my life, as a child bride, I'm very thankful that that law is being enacted in our country. So that is another form of trafficking, which hasn't had as much light shed on it. And I hope to bring more light to that issue because there's, 10-year-old kids or 17-year-old kids, like I was 17, who are being married off to adult men or coerced into marrying into unhealthy families like the cartel, like I was, because my ex-husband and his family were trying to get citizenship. So a lot of times people don't realize when children are in these situations in a marriage, you know, first of all, you don't really have that legal capacity to sign a contract because you're not 18, and marriage is a binding contract. So having that knowledge and that protection for them would protect years of suffering and pain, to which, to this point, even today, I still have to deal with because of making the wrong decisions. I should have married a nice Jewish boy like my dad told me to.
Oh, oh. I just appreciate your honesty and your vulnerability in this moment. And congratulations again for all of the work that you've done and the impact that you've made that is seeing real results and real laws being changed to
Mm,
protect children. So thank
mm,
you for the work that you're doing.
absolutely.
Um,
Thank you.
I can't gloss over the fact that you did mention that there are still things that you struggle with. So, what are some of the challenges that you feel like you have, but clearly you are a warrior and you are a champion of your circumstances? How are you able to, and I love actionable, the practical tips and advice and things like that as well. Like how are you managing all of this and being the leader that you are?
Well, I think leadership is something that you are born with. And if you want to know if you're a leader, check if there's people following you. I mean, I am consciously aware that everything that I go through in life is to help others. Because when I had that open heart surgery, I had such a wake up call that at any moment, our time on this earth could be done. And it's not up to us always to decide. In fact, I don't think it really ever, for the majority of the population is. Um, I didn't ask for that aneurysm. That came from stress due to my ex husband and his family causing me stress, forcing me out of my daughter's wedding, not allowing me to see her get married, forcing my mom to get on a plane with swollen feet and after the wedding, not letting her see me, just torment and torture, and then causing a scene at my mom's funeral when she passed away a year to the day of my daughter's uh, unfortunate matrimony because she married a man just like her dad. Um, so in that case, I feel like those are the things, the mistakes I've made. Now my daughter is making them. My daughter has made them, and her dad also has taken advantage of those situations. He's taken advantage of the legal system. He's abused me in this movement, even because of his family and their connections. So when I say I still have to strive and overcome, I know that one day my daughter will come back, to me and out of whatever unhappy situation she might be in right now. They forced her and my son to sign a contract not to have me in their lives because I was doing anti-trafficking work, because they wanted her to stop speaking. And she was a much more powerful speaker than I was, really powerful. In any regard, I believe that the plan that God has for us,
Yes.
no man can stop it. It might be delayed, but it's not going to be stopped. And so I have to keep going because I know she's out there watching. I know other girls are out there watching, other victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, other survivors, and those who are still being victimized. So I know that if I quit, I'm taking away the hope that they could have to make it another day. And that would be very selfish of me to do. I can't do that for just even one person. And even while we're sitting here doing this interview, I have my survivors that I've helped come out of trafficking texting me, just encouraging messages.
Wow.
So in the meantime, these are my daughters. These are my girls, that I love them with all my heart. All the survivors that God has brought into my life to work with, to nurture, to support. I don't take a salary from the work that I do. I always forget to fundraise and to, because that's
Mhm.
important, but it's not a priority. What's a priority for me is to keep helping people. And eventually the funds will come. Eventually whatever is supposed to happen will happen, but those are not the most important things. Again, we never know what our time frame is. So every day I want to make the most of this life that I'm given, if even if it's just for one more day. I just want to do one more good thing on this earth, one more good deed, help one more person.
And you truly are doing that. You truly are doing that. And just the impact that you're having in those girls' lives that who are reaching out to you and who are looking up to you and are being inspired by you, encouraged by you, that is everything. And who you're touching, I feel like that's the real significance of your legacy. You can't even define that because it's your impact on other people's lives. And I'm sure, just in this amount of time that you have been doing this work, you just touched so many lives and changed so many people's trajectories that you probably can't even fully quantize. So, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story about your family and your daughter, because I know that's not easy, especially when you've gone through it. And I'm sure you would hope more for your daughter and you would hope more for your ex husband to want to see more for your daughter. So, in that conflict there, I'm sure is really, really, really challenging just to, conceptualize and deal with on a daily basis because this is an
Mhm.
ongoing thing that you're going through. So I'm definitely going to be praying for your situation and praying for breakthrough in that situation as well. And thank you, God, in advance for already doing something for it.
Amen.
Um,
I appreciate it. And in anticipation of our interview patients, I was thinking back about my son also and my daughter. I have two children um, from their dad, and I was thinking about how my ex-husband brought my son to our restraining order hearing when he was just 18 years old. And that really affected our relationship because my son couldn't understand why his dad would want him to be at this hearing. And I didn't bring my daughter, I mean, our daughter, but she was a minor, so she was living with me. I mean, that's terrible to bring a child there. And so it caused such great confusion for my son for many years. And it was a power play that my ex husband did to try to get me to drop the restraining order I had against him. And so the judge decided he didn't want my son to be in the court. And my ex husband wound up using that experience to just really hurt my son mentally. Because when a parent psychologically abuses a child or uses parental alienation in those ways, that's not a good parent. That's evil. That is an evil parent that would do something so horrific as to cause your children to sign a contract saying that you have to pay him $20,000 for each of your weddings if I'm there. What kind of parent does that? That's not a good person. And I was very slow to even say to my kids anything negative because I had to be like the perfect parent. I felt like I had to be perfect because anything I would do or say, he would try to use against me. I couldn't even take the depression medicine that was, um, given to me by my doctor, because in our divorce trial, he tried to use it against me if I was taking any kind of depression medicine. So I just had to suffer through it and cry at home without medication. My daughter was not allowed to go to the domestic violence center for therapy because the judge in Miami in our divorce hearing sided with my ex-husband that my daughter would not get therapy. And so when a parent does those kind of things, it's just, you realize you're not dealing with a safe person, somebody who cares about their kids, because people who care about their kids don't do things like that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through these experiences and your children had to go through these experiences. And that's terrifying, just the very thought of what your son could have been feeling in those moments and not able to process on his own, what your daughter could have been feeling and not being able to process, so I truly believe, like you said, that everything happens for a reason and that nothing that God has planned will be stopped by any person's ill intent, anger, evilness, unforgiveness, right? None of those things can stop what God has planned. And I am so proud of you for making forward strides, especially to change the system that
Mm.
would allow some things to happen and go down that really shouldn't have happened. But you didn't just stay down. You didn't just cry. Even though you did cry, you got up and you moved on and you continued to fight.
Yeah.
And that's the spirit. And that's the spirit of which I really hope that the listeners, anybody who's listening right now who's going through a fight, who feel like they feel defeated, who feel like the opposition is too great, that these experiences are too much, that you can fight. Now you
Yeah.
can choose to get up and be the leader. You can choose to get up and be the champion of your circumstances. You don't have to stay down. And that's what you did.
That's right. And I appreciate that. And going back to what my daughter had said, she became so bold when she was speaking up on behalf of male survivors of trafficking. She really had a heart for them. Um, she became so bold, she started to research her grandfather who worked for Pablo Escobar, and she found an article from the LA Times that showed the indictment and where he was named among Manuel Noriega and Escobar and all that, and she held her dad accountable for it. And unfortunately, her dad saw that as a threat, and that's the straw that broke the camel's back. But in the end, after my daughter got married, her bridesmaid um, got stuck at LAX, and she asked me if I can pick her up, and she showed me this 4-page letter she had written, where she saw bruises on my daughter's arm. She heard her uh, soon to be husband calling my daughter names the night before. And so what happened was, my ex-husband had her marry this guy, or supported that, when I would not have. When I saw the signs, and I told my daughter, this is not a healthy marriage or relationship. And then just seeing that letter on top of it, it's like they just wanted to silence her because she was becoming very strong and bold. And I believe she's always going to be that person. Um, and just because you make a mistake and get involved with the wrong person, this is for anybody listening, that doesn't have to define you. It absolutely does not define you because you made a mistake, or because you got involved in trafficking, or because you did drugs, or whatever the case may be. That absolutely is not going to define you. It could be a stepping stone to a greater purpose for your life. It could be the next chapter in your book, in your story. The next book that I write is going to have more stories. All of these things that I've shared with you, and I've told people over the years, I can't believe that happened. Your daughter's wedding, and then your mom died, and then you had a heart aneurysm. But you know what it showed me, Patience? When I lost the relationship with my daughter, who she and I were so close, I was devastated. But I focused so much on what happened, and finding out that her dad made her sign a contract. I was so hurt that I I lost sight that I had my beautiful mom there, and she was getting older, and during the holidays, that year in 2019, she stopped being able to function, to cook, and things she loved to do as a Finnish homemaker. And I said, oh my gosh, I, I, I need to pay attention here. Um, and I did not see that she was going to pass away that year during COVID because I was grieving so much the loss of my daughter. There's a message here. You know, I lost the opportunity. I mean, I was her caretaker in the end, and I'm eternally grateful to God that I got the privilege of being with her and seeing her off. And there was so much peace. There were angels in her house. I could feel it for 2 hours before she went to heaven. I could just, it was like the most amazing peace and, and no fear. Just, it was a wonderful experience I had with my mom. But then when she left, I realized, oh my goodness, I was so focused on what happened in the past with my daughter that I lost now this time with my mom. I mean, I made the most of it, but if I would have just gotten a hold of that grieving and realized what I had, I could have made even more wonderful memories with her, that being her last year. And then the story didn't end there. I still had this lesson to learn because then I was so sad over losing my mom that I almost lost my own life because of the stress from my ex-husband and his family and the chaos they put me through, that I developed an aneurysm. I fell and hit my head on Mother's Day because I was taking some medicine for the depression. I finally took some medicine that my mom had, the same one, and it didn't work well for me, and I passed out. Anyway, God works in mysterious ways, and I drove myself to the hospital, and they said, your head is fine, honey, but your heart is not. You have this huge aneurysm that could pop at any moment, and it's called a silent killer because most people don't even find it.
Oh my gosh.
How did you find it? I was like, are you kidding? I don't have a health problem. But you see, that was the wake-up call. Like, wait a minute. No more living in the past. No more living about the trafficking, my ex-husband, his cartel family, the devious. I mean, sure, that stuff hurts. And I miss my kids. I love them dearly and I wish them the very, very best. I know they're both, married and they have their careers. My son just passed the bar in Florida, so he's a lawyer and I'm so proud of him. But you know what? That's their life. I did my job. I did my job and I raised them, and God bless them and I wish them well. But I cannot lose my life now living in the past. And that is my message to your listeners. If you have even today, just deal with whatever you got to deal with, say goodbye to the past, grieve what you have to grieve. I'm not saying rush through that, but by all means, live. Live today. Embrace your life. Embrace the joy. Put a smile on your face. Even if you don't feel like it, I guarantee you, if you practice, it will work. If you fake it, it will eventually stick. You will eventually feel like smiling because that's just how joy works. When you start pretending like I am going to make the most of today and you start putting one foot in front of the other, you put a smile on your face, you know what? You realize it's easier to put a smile than to put a frown. And then, you know what? You can go out and you can be kind to someone and you can show someone kindness. I guarantee you that will change your depression. The best medicine I found was being kind to someone else and serving someone else and thinking of their needs made me forget about myself. And there's someone in the Bible that I remember learning about and seeing the stories, and he would do that. and he would serve people and he would help people. And his name was Jesus. And I remember that was an example like, wow, you can serve people and you can help people. And you know what? There is nothing wrong with doing that while you're in pain. In fact, that's a very quick way to get rid of the pain. And if you do it long enough, you forget that you were even in pain or suffering or hurting in any way. And that becomes a way of life and it becomes infectious. And then people want to come talk to you or have you on a radio or podcast, interview.
Wow. You, everything that you said was so prolific. And you are such an amazing speaker, by the way. I just wanted to let you know that. That there was an arc that you took us on. There was the lows and there was the highs, but at the end of it you showed us how to actually transform our life in a real way. And even if it's faking it until you make it, and using that repetition of just belief and just believing that it's going to change, and giving service and being a light to other people, and that energy somehow gets returned back to you in some way. That is real advice. Like, that's real actionable advice that you can take right now as you're listening. These are things you can implement tonight and start working towards a better future for yourself, so you can be present for the moments, for the people that matter the most, and not the things and the people that don't, right? And I'm so sorry for the loss of your mom.
Thank you. Thank you. But I know she's in a better place.
Yes, she is.
you
She's
know,
better off than we are. And I just lost my uncle recently,
oh,
and And the first thing that someone said to me when I shared about it was, they are in a much better place than we are. And, that made me smile, because I'm like, that's absolutely right. Now that I think about it, he's good. We're the ones down here that need the strategies and the
yes,
tools.
yes.
That really helps. Like, that really helps the process that mentally. So,
I
well,
believe it. And you know what? You're never alone. On my deepest, darkest night, I didn't have any family. I didn't have anybody. I had to recuperate from open heart surgery by myself. And my mom's water heater broke. So
no.
I know there were a few nice people. Um, at the time, I was going to a church in South Florida, and they were so gracious and put me in a hotel for that week because the water heater broke right when I got out of rehab. But
Oh,
listen, I don't take any act of kindness for granted because I realize even strangers, you know, showed kindness to me when I didn't have any family to come and support me. My kids didn't come, my kids didn't call, nobody showed up, nobody came. And that's the other message is nobody is going to come rescue you. You have to do it. And you know what? You're not alone because God was with me. Can I tell you something, Patience? I would not trade that time of being alone, having to boil hot water to take a sponge bath where I could barely even lift my arms, but doing that, carrying the water by myself to the bathroom and having to take care of myself, I wouldn't trade that. You know why? Because I grew. The strength that I gained, that realizing I'm not responsible for anybody else in this world, in this life. I'm responsible for me. And I have to get through this because nobody is going to come help me. Nobody is going to come save me. Nobody's going to come rescue me. Sure, I had a friend, come down from New York for a week right when my heart stopped and I needed to go back into the hospital. God brought her for 1 week. Sure, I had another friend come and bring me dinner, at the hotel. I mean, God uses people when you need them, but you don't need people 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days. You need God
mm-hmm.
24/7. And
Absolutely.
and I learned to depend on him. And you know what? That's what gives me so much joy. I'm so happy. I'm so proud that I had that relationship with him, and I learned how to rely on him. And I think one of the things that causes people to lose um, track of where they're supposed to go is the people pleasing and feeling like we need the approval of man. We really don't, because my friends who are listening, on your darkest day, they're not going to be there for you, and it doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make my kids bad. They were dealing with whatever they were dealing with. Friends, people help whatever they can help. But at the end of the day, you know what? I got through it and I'm okay. I survived.
Ah, I'm so glad that you are here. You are a blessing to any and everyone that you meet. Your smile, it's healing. Your voice is healing. Your story is powerful. And you have an incredible testimony. And I can't wait to see what God has for you next, because the way that you just spoke life into me and everybody who's listening, this is the service. And just in you being your absolute self is the way that you're serving. And we thank you so much for your service today and sharing your energy and your wisdom that you've acquired through these circumstances with us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. To God be the glory.
Amen.
I appreciate it, Patience. And I have to say, I have come back to my Jewish community and my Jewish faith um, after October 7th, because I realized, you know what, this is part of who I am too. And when I came back, I was not afraid of the terrorists. No, because I said, I've already had abusers against me, traffickers, the cartel. Hamas can take a number. I'm sorry, but I don't have time for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, because
Sometimes you
I
simply don't have time.
I just don't. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't. I really don't. I no. Because look, I know who I am, and
Yes.
God's fingerprint is on me, and for every Jewish person in the world, God's DNA is in you. So we cannot fail. Okay? That's for all of us who are God's children. We cannot fail. I'm sorry. Failure is not an option.
Walk in
That's
that
not going
authority.
to happen. Failure
Walk
is
in that
not.
authority. You have to walk in that authority. And that's exactly what you're saying is take your power back from
Yes.
these people and these situations that have been robbing you of the mental space, the emotional space, the spiritual space where you can be using that energy to create life in within yourself and in other people's lives and be that healing light, that amazing, beautiful soul that God created you to be.
Yeah.
Ah,
Who is Hamas in your life that you need to conquer? That
mm.
you need to say, I don't have time for that. No, that's a no. That's a hard no. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be tormented and tortured. As long as I have breath in this life and I have one more day to walk on this earth, I'm going to live my life to the fullest, to the glory of God. And you know what? He will be with me because He promises in His word, in the book of Psalms, He promises that He will be with us. And not only that He'll be with us, but that we'll be victorious and that He will fight against those who fight against us. So we're not in this battle alone, but I guarantee you, we will win.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Dr. Kat, how can we connect with you and how can we follow your journey and make sure we're updated about the book and possibly a film someday? I just feel that the momentum of the moments in your life have been cinematic in a way. And I think that on film that would just unfold so powerfully to glorify the power of God in your life.
I will receive that, Patience, and I believe that. I've heard that before. Um, and when I did hear it, I realized now, 5 years later, there was so much more that needed to be lived before that movie could be made. Um, there was also another part of my story when I was a teenager that I answered a false modeling ad, and it was um, the guy that they made the French Connection about, which was an older movie. And so you realize there's people and players that come into your life that sometimes when you're going through it, you think, oh, that was terrible. That was awful. That was a retired law enforcement that took advantage of me or that sexually exploited me or raped me. And, you know, you think, oh, woe is me. But you know what? Now I help others to see, you know what? You're not alone. You're not alone. And that doesn't make you a bad person if that person in an authority took advantage of you or abused you or hurt you. And so, yes, there is more books in me. There's a movie. There's, I'm sure, all of these wonderful things that God wants to use. But again, the most important thing is I want to encourage others and I want to support others. I love lifting up other leaders, survivor leaders. And so with our nonprofit, if people want to connect, they can go to www.thereishopeforme.org. That's there'shopeforme.org, or they can go onto our Facebook or our Instagram or Twitter. I have to admit though, I'm not a big social media person. So we have high schoolers. We have a high school club in South Florida that one of our board members started with her students. And so they manage our social media accounts.
No, that's
Um,
awesome.
yes, but I am on LinkedIn. However, I would just say, follow us on our website. Send me an email, info@thereishopeforme.org. I'll add you to our newsletter. And I do send a newsletter out every week. But also, the books are on Amazon. They're on thereishopeforme.org. And stay tuned for the next book that's going to come out. It's going to be a real hit. And it's also going to be a very important work for first responders and people who want to get in the anti-trafficking movement, because we're going to be talking. We're already, I mean, all of these experts from England, from the United States, we're talking about uh, grassroots, how to really do this work and do it collaboratively, do it effectively, and do it with a survivor's perspective and a trauma informed lens. So I hope people will pick it up. It's breaking down barriers and building collaboration in the anti trafficking movement. So thank you again so much, Patience, for having me on. And if you or your viewers have any questions, absolutely please feel free to reach out.
Well, before I let you go, and you've already given us so much, you've already shared so much that's been truly impactful. But if there was anything that you could say to a survivor of sex trafficking or child trafficking, what could you say to them to help them put a spark back into their halo today?
First of all, I would say you are beautiful. You did not make this happen, and it is not your fault. Nobody deserves to be abused or exploited, and you can come out of that. If you need a little bit of help, you can text Be Free, BEFREE. That is to our friends at the National Human Trafficking Hotline, or you can call 888 3737 888. Of course, you can call 911. You can text Be Free. You can go online. You can also report it. If somebody sees something, please report it. You can report anonymously. It's better to report it and be wrong than not report it and be sorry and later realize that you should have done something. Most tips come from the general public. And so I would say to the general public, trust your instincts. If something doesn't seem right, it's probably not. So make that call. Don't be embarrassed. You can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, you can report it, and you can possibly save someone's life. But survivors, if you know there's something that doesn't seem right about your relationship, I want to encourage you, I want to challenge you. Put one foot in front of the other. Get yourself out of that. That's how most trafficking survivors now are coming out of trafficking, by education, podcasts, and interviews just like this, and you making the decision that you want to change. You want something different. You want to see something different. It doesn't feel right. Something's not right. Reach out if we can help. Reach out if law enforcement can help. But talk to someone. And if people in your school or people at home don't believe you, keep telling, keep talking until someone believes you. Someone eventually will believe you. And for everyone else out there, please believe them the first time. People don't make up these kind of stories. This is horrific. Can you imagine, Patience, if someone who had never heard of Pulse looked at you and said, "Oh, you made up that story"? I mean, that's devastating. The most scariest time in your life. And somebody would say that. So please believe a survivor's story the first time and don't make them have to retell it. Just have patience and have compassion. And together we can solve this problem or at least help those who are dealing with it to come out of it and have a more fruitful life. I wish you well. I wish everyone well. And just know God loves you and you are not alone. We're in this together.
Dr. Kat, you truly are an inspiration. Thank you for using your voice to create change and just continuing the work that you are doing because we need you, the world needs you, and there's so many women who need you and I'm sure men who need you as well to educate them and to just be a light for them, a pathway to a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Patience. And thank you so much for sharing your story again. That really touched my heart, what you shared, because I was there that night just down the street praying for you all. I really was. I really was. And I'm so
Thank you.
thankful that God saved you. I'm so proud of you, Patience.
Thank you so much. In so many ways, I really needed to hear that. And I just appreciate you. Thank you so much. And guys, this has been another episode of Healing Her Halo.